Longest Jake here to talk about the X Shot Longshot Pro. I may be the very last person to do a review on this thing. Is that an achievement? Last person in 2023 to review the X Shot Longshot? Now, I never try to be first on anything. Unless there is something from BuzzBee that I am absolutely stoked about. Then, it's just more of I can't contain my excitement, because I do genuinely like that, even if people think it's weird. I love BuzzBee, the people behind the company, and I mention that because X Shot is a company I have had a long enjoyment of their products. Now, one of the very first blasters I put up a review on was the X Shot Reflex. That 6-shot revolving front-loading pistol that I have loved literally going on now, well, since my first one I got was like in 2016 or 17, and I have loved that thing ever since. Now, with this, I was pretty hyped for it, to be honest. I mean, very much so. So you're thinking, huh, you said when you're really hyped about something, that's the one time you might rush for review. This is one time where I restrained myself. Restrained? Yeah, I'll still leave it in. We're not going to edit that out. Restrained and withheld. Because I wanted to do a thorough long-term test. Because at this point now, we all know the issues the Longshot has. And that's weird, because I'm a long-time old guard Nerf guy. Because you say Longshot, it means long shot. It does not mean X Shot Longshot. That's just weird to me. Still is. Even though it's been out for months and months, it's still weird. But X Shot Longshot. Longshot means Nerf. It means the original, the OG long-range blaster that everybody built 10 times over. You know, if you remember the ones doing the triple B builds. Yeah. But this kind of has taken the mantle of that. A very high-performance capable blaster that we have seen. The sky is kind of the limit with this thing. But, like some things, you can have a high-skill ceiling with a very low floor as well. This thing, as has been the case, has that very, very low floor with a couple of parts that have failed catastrophically early on for some people. So instead, I know I'm kind of rambling, so instead of doing the quick review that everybody else did, I have done a long-term review. And I had spare parts ready to go. Fully expecting, you already know, the plunger tube, that has been the #1 culprit, and, of course, the pusher. This being a spring-powered, bullpup style blaster, it means it has to have, much like what a lot of the mag and grip pistols have, it has to be able to get the air from in front of where the magazine is loading. Because keep in mind, springers typically, they follow a set rules or set design. Whereas you have the stock, you have your power plant, you know, your spring, your plunger rod, plunger tube, going into a breech. Then you have your mag well. Then it pushes, you know, the pusher pushes through the mag well into the breech, into the barrel. Everything's moving forward. Well, doing a bullpup means you have to rearrange some things. So now you basically have a pusher that scoops and redirects the air coming around from the plunger tube. It has to come around and then go back through to fire the dart. Like so. And X Shot did all that and did it well. And hit a extremely low price point of around $30. Which is insane. It genuinely is. But they made some pretty big cost-cutting measures in order to do that. And the two failure points have been the actual plunger tube itself. I don't know if the plastic or polycarbonate, if it's just simply, it's probably not even polycarbonate, but if it's just too light grade, too thin walled, or they made it such quick production that quality control wasn't there. But there's been lots of fractures and cracks and full-on, you know, destruction in various people's plunger tubes. I don't watch other reviews ahead of doing mine, but I'm so far behind at this point that, and Basically, if you were on any social media, you heard about all the major failures. And I didn't get my X Shot Longshot immediately. It took me about a month after everybody else got theirs, I was able to snag one. And then, after that, that pusher, people had that fail. There's been a couple other parts, but those have been the two main ones. So instead, what I've done is a very long-term review, like I said. I had one night where I literally stayed out here in the workshop, turned on my CD player, and yes, I actually still do have CDs and a CD player. When I said I was old school, I meant it. I mean it. But had music going and just sat out here with a stack of magazines, reloading, and just went through a bucket of darts. And I actually put a grand total of about 1,600 shots by the end of it. I posted on my Discord when I was in the process of it, and I had 1,400 shots, no failures. I did, however, wherever I've set it, I had a whole bucket of some waffle tip darts. I used men guns and other narrow tipped waffle tips. These are all it's a jar of destroyed darts, because I was finding out with the full lengths, because of course this claims both full length and half length compatible. It is very picky on the full lengths, very picky. I actually destroyed about 100 in total. That's just half of them, but I destroyed about 100 darts in total because it had a lot of misfeeds. I didn't, however, damage the actual pusher itself, so I'm good there. And I didn't have any failures on the plunger tube. I did break my normal rule of not tearing it down, because this is not my typical review. I tore it down before I did this recording here, and I inspected everything. I do not have any hairline cracks. I do not have any fractures. I have been lucky. Now, this is not me harping on the blaster and criticizing it too much, because it's hit a price point where they've made those concessions. And you just need to know, if you do go get one, you're going to have to be ready for a couple of failure points. The plunger tube is easy. It's actually really easy to fix. I have an alloy one on standby. It's actually over here on my shelf. Yeah, I know you can't see it. I'm pointing at it, but you can't see it. I bought one. Multiple people have them for around $10, give or take. Silver Fox Industries, they have them both in polycarbonate and in alloy, anodized in different colors. Out of Darts has them. You can get them. So, that's easy. And it's actually pretty easy to tinker with blaster. The worst and most complicated and nagging thing is the amount of screws. This shell has a lot of screws all throughout it. So, be ready. If I were to order one, I'd just go ahead and order a plunger tube. Just preemptively install it. Because we're going to get to this, and please stay with me through the whole review, because this is the long-term review. I'm going to give it some depth. This thing is worthy of that plunger tube. The price is about $30 for the blaster. I haven't had any structural failures, because you can look at a plastic component. If it's stressed, the color will start to discolor. Orange parts that are stressed will turn whitish. I have not had that on the actual pusher into the breech. I haven't had that on any parts. I did disassemble it, took it under the lights, inspected it. No issue so far. I'm lucky. Others have had lots of issues. Well-known plunger tube. But when you factor in the other great blaster, and I'm kind of looking at it over here, the Nexus Pro. When it came out, it was hailed as this awesome thing, and it is a good blaster. It has its issues, and long-term people have found those. It does end up having breakage issues. You know, at the back where the buffer tube where the stock goes in, that can break under high spring loads. Things will happen when you're trying to meet price points and performance. Remember the old adage, you want it fast, you want it good, or do you want it cheap? Fast, good, and cheap. Pick two. So, fast in this case would be either the performance or the bulk manufacturing. Good would be, again, either performance or the quality. And cheap is, of course, it's always the price point. This has a cheap price point. For what you get, you cannot beat this thing. This beats the Nexus 100% every day, all day. This is $30. Nexus was $50 when it came out. So it is a $20 reduction in price. That is almost 50%. Because if this was $25, you could buy 2 of them for the price of one Nexus. And it hits basically the same performance. So be ready to replace your plunger tube. Mine has seen 2,000 shots at this point. I did break the 2,000 mark with no failures. This blaster will be modified. I'm going to just simply put on this one here, this one will get a plunger tube. It's going to get a spring upgrade. I already have the spring. And this one will get maybe a couple other parts. And I'm going to leave it with the stock paint job. I actually like the stock paint job quite a lot. Oh, and also, stock sights, that huge rail. I actually like the stock sights. This one's not going to get anything done to it. I'm not going to do the barrel. This one is going to stay the same as it is. It's going to get the plunger tube and a spring upgrade. That's my main 2 things. So it's going to be kind of like a super stock. I like this thing enough, though, I'm going to buy a second. And then a third. This is going to be my new X Shot Reflex. So, getting to it, I've told you that mine has actually seen a torture test and passed it. Most have not. This thing, now actually specifically on the blaster, it is supremely comfortable. You can see I'm a little choked up on this stock, and yes, the stock is adjustable. If you haven't known already, little button down here at the bottom, collapses it. It has about 1.5 inches of extension. It's still pretty choked up for me, but I'm only 5'10", so I'm average height for an American male, but I have long arms. My wingspan is actually like 6'4". I have a much longer set of arms than I do my height. So for me, yeah, I mean, I could do with, 6 or 8 inches more stock and still be able to comfortably reach the front grip and use it. But I'm okay with this as it is. Might just put like a rubber butt plate to add on there, epoxy it, and trim it and epoxy it, because you can buy those on Amazon. Just buy them that they're cut to fit, epoxy it on, and they're like an extra 1.5 inches, 2 inches. That'd help a little bit. But ergonomics are great on this thing. The magwell is easy to access with your offhand, to where you're done. You can either swap mags, take the whole mag adapter out and put a full length in if you need to, or just simply the access of firing, being ambidextrous, is very nice. Everything about this just is great. It is a little light, it is a little creaky, and the magazines, you'll actually see I'm using a worker mag here. The magazines are some of the worst I've had. And I know, I test a lot of off-brand stuff. Like, Busby's magazines have approached or surpassed, equaled, whatever you want to say. They're on par with Workers' quality. Busby's new mags. X Shots, these feel cheap. These feel like I could just crush them in my hands. And this is the only magazine that I've actually ever broke. In all my years of doing YouTube, all my years of battles, it's the only magazine I've ever broke in routine use. This did not hit the floor. Now you're looking at it, you're like, what do you mean it's broke? Yeah. that mag lip there is barely holding on, and you can't use this. And there's no real way to repair that. I mean, you could epoxy it and hope for the best, but then that little lip is going to come off. And it doesn't feed very well either. I don't have good feeding from this. This was part of the problem. Oh, there. It's about to go. But that one doesn't feed very well. And the full length feeds worse, actually. As soon as you try to load it, it's a 15 round. But as soon as you load it, on this one specifically, past about 9 or 10 darts, it starts to stick and jam. So I don't really use these. I don't really care for them. The Busby mags and Worker mags are my go-to. I wish the Buzzbee mags would be like a 20 rounder. But I have the Worker 22s for full lengths, and I have these that I bought a few of, enough for me to run a loadout, and these are just much better. And I'll take the blaster with the cheap mags over a bad blaster with good mags. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody there. It's just perspective. I've got good mags. I got a whole bin of them here behind me, and I'll take my good mags and just keep using them. But the X Shot Longshot, to bring a long video, rambling, but that's what you're here for if you watch my videos. But it has its flaws. It really does. But, kind of don't we all? But it has its flaws, but it as a platform, it is a product to introduce somebody. The fact that, I haven't even said the performance, the fact that somebody could go and buy for $30 a blaster in this day and age that hits over 130 feet per second with full lengths and touches near almost 150 in my case. I'm averaging about 147 with half-length darts, depends on the dart, between 143 to 147. This one really likes worker darts. It hits about 147 with those, but 130 plus with full lengths and almost 150 with half lengths. And you can buy this for $30. It has its flaws. It has its issues. Stock's creaky. The plunger tube may fail on you. The pusher may also stress out and crack. But parts are already available. Cheap parts. Very cost effective. You can put a new plunger tube in this for less. Actually, between my spring and plunger tube that I've already bought and the cost for me to purchase this, I'm still not at the same exact price as an Nexus Pro. Or actually, I'm exactly the same price. My plunger tube that I bought was $11. The spring was $9. And this was $30. That's $50. This is 30 plus 11 plus 9. That's $50. Nexus Pro was $50 that I bought. Exact same price. And this will, at that point, outperform the Nexus Pro. And it'll have its problem solved. So, this is a winner. And if you were going to look at one or the other, this now or the Striker, or any of the other, seems like, cloned Dart Zone products, this stands out. It's also different, both functionally and aesthetically. And X Shot took a leap with it. And I love that they did, because it's great. It has its flaws. But in my long-term tests, mine's still going strong. Of course, as I say that, the next shot will blow my plunger tube up. All good. But long overdue review, but it gave me a chance to truly stress test the blaster. So, my thoughts, summed up here at the end, it's a home run. It may have flaws, but it's a home run. What else are you going to be able to spend $30 on and get this level of performance, stock, with the basis of what it can be with some mods? You're not finding that anywhere else. So this is absolute home run. And I plan on buying multiples and working on them. So you can stay tuned to see some mods coming forward as we go in through winter and into spring. And as I get my hands on a couple more of these things. But that's my long-term review of the X Shot Longshot. Still wish they went with a different name. That's confusing to somebody like me. But hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for hanging around.